everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I like to talk about books, and today I'm going to be tier ranking every book I read in 2020. Tier ranking has been super popular this year, even in the book community. I myself haven't made any tier ranking videos for bookish content or any content, but I have seen a lot of other booktubers and creators doing them, and I just really enjoy watching them. I've already seen a couple other creators start to do the same kind of concept of tier ranking all the books they read in a year, and I just thought it would be a fun way to jump in on it. Even though the trend is a little bit old, I still think it'll be fun. So far this year I have read 138 books, so I'm just going to rank all the 138 books that I have read so far. That's a lot. We're going to have to go pretty quickly. But this will also be the start of a series on my channel this week where every day I'm going to be uploading a new video where I talk about the worst books I read this year, the best books I read this year, the most disappointing books I read this year, and more. So stick around this week for a new video every day that's going to go deeper into some of the best and worst books that will be on this list. So first I'll walk you through my tier ranking. So we have the top layer, which is just truly immaculate vibes. This is the best of the best. The vibes are perfect. The story was perfect. It's just like more than a 5 out of 5 star. Then we have Living Rent Free in My Mind. These books are good, they're great even, but they're not the best. You know, they just live up here. I think about them still sometimes out of nowhere. When people ask for recommendations, I'll still recommend these books, but they're not like my all-time favorites. Then we have She Was the Moment. And so these books were the moment when I read them. I really enjoyed them. I thought they were great. They did everything I needed them to do, but they're not going to stick around super long. I might not even recommend these books to everyone. Next we have Good, Not Great. That one's pretty self-explanatory. These books were just like, okay, they were better than average, but they weren't outstanding. Then we have Not For Me. A lot of times I'll read a book and I can appreciate it. It just wasn't for me, so I definitely want to keep that category in here. Next we have No Thoughts, Head Empty. These are the books that I can't tell you anything about the plot or the plot twist or what happened. I just read it and immediately forgot about it because it just didn't do anything for me. And finally, we have Throw the Whole Book Away. For these, we could just throw it away. I would not care at all. So let's get started in no particular order. First, we have Stephen King's On Writing. This is a part memoir, part instructional writing manual thing. I thought this was pretty good. Not amazing, not bad. I do have thoughts about it, so we're gonna put her in Good, Not Great. Then we have The Shining. I really loved The Shining. It was amazing. I don't know if it's like an all-time favorite because I don't love Stephen King's writing. There's just some things that don't vibe with me. But I would say there are some things that do live rent-free in my mind from this book and certain scenes that just don't go away. Next we have Brain on Fire. This is a memoir about a woman who she starts having weird symptoms, and then it's like about her medical journey of her diagnosis. And honestly, I don't even remember what her diagnosis was, but this was pretty popular and she was on like a lot of talk shows. I thought this was a really good memoir. I thought it was really brave to share the story. She was the moment. You know, I loved her when I read her. Don't think about her all the time. Next we have Joyland. This was just not for me. I just didn't really care for it. It's an amusement park story, but it's just like, it's weird. It's like Stephen King trying to be wholesome, but I just didn't care for it. Next we have The House on Mango Street. For this one, I have No Thoughts, Head Empty. I read this during the reading rush and I read it too fast and I don't even really remember anything about it. Next we have The Troop. And I'm gonna say this one's just not for me. I know a lot of people love The Troop, but I just thought it was really not spectacular. It is gross, and I feel like people like the grossness, but I wouldn't prefer to read anything like this ever again. Next we have Through the Woods. This is a horror graphic novel that I read in October, and it was really nice. Good, not great. Artwork was great. Stories were just good. Next we have Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. Not for me. It was just a little too dull and dark and dreary. 3 a.m. This was a book that is just gonna go down here. Next we have Station 11, and I would say I didn't really appreciate Station 11 a ton when I was reading it, so like she wasn't the moment. She doesn't live rent-free in my mind, but she's better than good. She's great. So we're gonna call her the moment. I just didn't appreciate her as much as she deserved to be appreciated. But that's a really good book. Next we have Revival, which was not for me. The Kind Worth Killing, I would like to throw the whole book away. I don't really care for Peter Swanson's works, and yeah, I didn't like any of the characters. I thought the plot twist was cheap. I don't like that book. Next we have Lumberjanes. That was good. It's a graphic novel about these girls at a camp. I don't remember a ton about the stuff, but they're like fighting monsters together and they're like a bunch of badass females, so we did like her. Okay, next we have House of Leaves. I have a whole reading blog of this if you're interested in full thoughts on this. I'm gonna say she was good, but she wasn't great. I really liked parts of the story. There were other parts I just didn't care about very much. Next we have Radio Silence, and I know a lot of people love Radio Silence, but it just wasn't for me. I think a little too old to read it and really love it for what it is, but if I would have read it when I was younger, I think I would have really loved it. I definitely think it's a great story. I think Alice Oseman's writing is great, but it's just not like a favorite of mine. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. She was the freaking moment. She really was. That book was so insane. I definitely did not expect it to be as intense as it was, and I honestly, I don't know if I like it or not. I think about that a lot. I think I gave it 5 stars, and I know I recommend it, but I don't know if I would like want to read a book like this again. It was just a lot. Speaking of a lot, we have A Little Life, which is also a book that I have a whole reading blog for. I just recently read it, and I'm gonna say living rent-free in my mind. The vibes are not immaculate. This is a very, very intense, sad, traumatic book. But I don't think I'll ever stop thinking about these characters. I think they will just be up here forever. Next we have The Grown-Up, and The Grown-Up's going to be in truly immaculate vibes. It is a 60-page novella from Gillian Flynn, the author of Gone Girl. It is just really fast-paced. There are plenty of twists and turns in just 60 pages. The vibes are immaculate. Like, the atmosphere is great. It's a haunted house story, and it's psychological, and I just really love that book. Next we have The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and that was good, not great. I thought there was just a little bit too much going on, but it was good. Nightlights, this is a graphic novel for, I think, kids. It's like really young, so it's kind of not for me, but the art style was amazing, so I would still recommend it. Mapping the Interior, truly immaculate vibes. That is a short novella from Stephen Graham Jones. It is about a boy who is grieving the loss of his father, and it is a horror story, and it is just so deep and intense and complex for just like 100 pages. Highly recommend. Love that book. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I know a lot of you love this book. So many people love this book. I thought it was okay. Thought it was good. I just didn't think it was great. I don't know. I think my expectations were too high for it, honestly. Final Girls, no thoughts had empty, honestly. I don't really remember much. There was a lot going on, a lot of girls, a lot of plot twists. It's Riley Sager's first book, so I definitely wanted to read it because I really like Riley Sager, but you can tell it's his first book. Which is fine. You know, people grow and develop as writers. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a short story collection. Tons of people love this, but I just thought it was okay. I'm gonna say not for me. I'm just not really into short story collections at this point. I think I will get into them eventually. It's just going to take some time for me to like get into a rhythm of reading them. I thought all the stories were good. I liked the beginnings of them, and then I was just kind of bored through some of them. Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Kane. Tons of people give this 5 stars, but I don't know why. I thought it was pretty basic. So honestly, throw the whole book away. It was just sort of like a Lifetime series in a book. I don't know why people love it so much. Same for Emma in the Night. Throw the whole book away. People give that 5 stars, and I just thought it was boring, and it's just like a messy family drama, and I'm not really into that. Also, Lies She Told. That book was just a mess. Don't like it. Little Fires Everywhere. She was the moment. She definitely was the moment this year with the new Hulu show that came out. Tons of people were watching that. Tons of people were reading this book. That's why I read it too. and it was really good. The Great Alone, that one lives rent-free in my mind. It was just written so beautifully that I can still picture it and feel it. Like, I can still feel the cold Alaska weather when I think about this book, and the isolation and all the hard things this family was going through. Like, that is just really wonderfully written. Summer of Salt. I really love Summer of Salt. I love the writing, the storyline, the magicalness. She was the moment. I read her over the summer. It was a great time. Freshwater, this is the most unique book I've ever read. But it wasn't like a perfect book, but it was good. No Exit, truly immaculate vibes. One of the best thrillers I've ever read. If you haven't read that and you like thrillers, you are missing out. Please go get it right now and read it because it is so good. Heartberries, No Thoughts Had Empty. Read that one during the reading rush and had the same kind of problem with The House on Mango Street, where I was just reading too fast and don't even really know what I read. I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. This was really good, really short. Talks a lot about racism in the workplace, which I liked reading about because that's not something I've read about a ton, but I wouldn't say it was like the best written nonfiction book I've ever read, so good, not great. What are these called? Heavy Vinyl. So the next two is a graphic novel series that is about this group of girls that works at a music store, but then it turns out they really like fight crime in their free time, but they're really short. They're like 26 pages or something. So I'm going to say they're both good, but they're not great because I just wish they were one thing that was longer. But I do enjoy them. I just don't think I'll keep reading them. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, that is truly immaculate vibes. That's one of my favorite books. I recommend that to literally everyone I come across. If you read books, read that book. I don't care what your genres are, that's a great book. The Cabin at the End of the World, also truly immaculate vibes. That's one of my favorite books I've read this year without a doubt. I just get so creeped out by home invasion stories, so it was really effective for me and it really scared me and it was just really good. Check Please, Volume 1. I'm gonna say this one was not for me. We'll have a different opinion when we get to Volume 2, wherever that is. I'll go ahead and pull that out too. Check Please, Volume 2, I'll say was good, not great. Check Please Volume 1 was like the coming of age story of our main character. I'm not really interested in coming of age stories anymore, just kind of boring to me. The second one was more of a romance as he's in a relationship with another hockey player, and that was really cute, but it wasn't like amazing. Elevation by Stephen King, No Thoughts Had Empty. That's a really short Stephen King story. Another one that's like kind of wholesome about this guy who just like, he keeps like losing weight or gravity and then he just like floats. I don't know. It was a strange book. No thoughts about it. Then She Was Gone. Throw the whole book away. I have so many feelings about that book. I don't like it. I know you guys do. I'm sorry. I don't. My Sister, the Serial Killer. That is the moment. She Was the Moment. That is a really well-written book. It's written in vignettes, which I think is just a really fun style, and it doesn't have like huge character arcs, but you really are just in it when you're in it, and I had a great time being in it. Sheets, I will say, was also good, not great. That's a graphic novel I read in October about a ghost sheet that comes to this girl who lives in a laundromat, and I really like their friendship. I really like the art style, but it wasn't great. Bloom is another graphic novel that I will just say throw the whole book away. I heard so many good things about that book, and then I just hated the relationship. I thought it was so toxic. The main character, I could not get behind. I was not rooting for them. I just didn't like it. Measure What Matters. This is a book I read for work. I probably shouldn't have put it here, so No Thoughts Had Empty. An Anonymous Girl. This was like okay, but it wasn't incredible. It was my first book by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I've been wanting to read their thrillers. So I started there and it was just pretty basic, kind of boring once you figure out what's going on because there's not like a ton of plot twists that stack on top of each other. It's just pretty straightforward once you get to like the halfway point. The Silent Patient. This one is not for me. That might be surprising. I know that's like one of the best thrillers according to many readers, but I thought the plot twist was really cheap and I didn't like that book and I'm not sorry about it. Goodnight Beautiful, I'm also going to put in good, not great. That is a new thriller that came out this year. Got kind of spoiled for me. Next is I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I'm gonna say that was The Moment. They made a movie on Netflix. The movie was okay. Book was better. Interesting plot twist at the end. Interesting experience reading that book and trying to figure out what's going on. But overall, a little disappointing, maybe? Just my opinion. The One by John Mars. This is really good. This is a really fun, fast-paced sci-fi thriller. That was The Moment. I really enjoyed that. Pumpkinheads. This is a graphic novel I read in October. It was good, not great. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Throw the whole book away. That's another graphic novel I read. Super toxic relationship. Didn't like it. Normal People, throw that whole book away too. I thought that was so boring. There's literally no point to it. I don't know why people like it. Didn't even like the show. Red, White, and Royal Blue. This, let's get back up here, is truly immaculate vibes. That is the America I want to live in. It is amazing. That relationship is just... This is the book that got me into romance this year again. I haven't liked romance since high school, and all of a sudden I liked it again after reading that book. So it is amazing. Next we have Godshot. This... It was very well written, so I'll say good. It's sort of not for me because it's a little depressing in a way. I don't know, it's just like really grimy. There's just something I get out of books sometimes when I read them and I'm like, this just feels dreadful. And then I don't love that. So, yeah. But it was really well written, so I'll keep it in good, not great. Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. I don't remember when I read this, but I remember that I remember nothing about it, so no thoughts had empty. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. That was The Moment. I freaking loved that book when I read it. I was recommending it to everybody. It was such a fun, fast-paced thriller. That was the first Riley Sager book I read. Loved it. But I think if I read it again, I maybe wouldn't like it as much now that I've read other Riley Sager books and kind of see the patterns in his books. Maybe I wouldn't think it was like super unique anymore. Twilight. I reread Twilight this year before Midnight Sun came out, and I mean, I have thoughts about it. It's a nostalgia read for me, but like also understand the problems about it. So we'll just put it in no thoughts at empty. The Whisper Man. This one, the vibes were immaculate when I read it, but I don't really think I'd call it a favorite. So we're gonna say she was The Moment. Loved that book when I read it. Really was obsessed with Alex North. Ended up reading The Shadows, which we'll go ahead and throw up here too. And The Shadows, I would say, lives rent-free in my mind. The Whisper Man, I would just say, was The Moment. But The Shadows, I think, was better. The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a very small, interesting book that I thought was good. Not mind-blowing, but really fun to read. Next we have The Midnight Library. This was up here. Let's see. It was definitely good. Not great. That's what I was going to say. This book should have been a 5-star for me. It was the perfect formula for everything I want and need in a book, but I just didn't think it was great. I think I've read books that did the same sort of concept or playing with time or the meaning of life sort of themes that have just done it so much better. I just felt like this story was a little bit surface level and could have been way better. Next we have The Deep. This is another short book. It was really incredible. I also listened to it on audiobook, so it sort of is in my mind rent-free, but I don't think about it a ton. So we're just gonna say she was The Moment. I thought about it a ton when I was reading it and right after. It's a truly incredible concept. It was really pulled off wonderfully, but I just don't think about it a ton. Ask Again, yes. This was The Moment as well. This book is really, really good, really emotional. The Beautiful, I'm gonna say that one's not for me. It is a vampire story in New Orleans. I was in the mood for vampire stuff, thought that was gonna be immaculate for me, but it was kind of boring. Wilder Girls, I'm also gonna say is not for me. I get why people like it, but I just didn't. I thought the story was really directionless. I just didn't love it. Nothing to See Here. This is truly immaculate vibes. I love that book so much. That's an all-time favorite. I would recommend that to anybody. Seance Tea Party. This one was really cute. It's a graphic novel about a girl who ends up doing a seance and like ends up with this ghost friend, and they're both sort of, it's like a coming of age story. They're both like learning to grow up and let go and move on, and it was really, really sweet. Bunny by Mona Awad. This one lives rent-free in my mind. That is the weirdest book I've ever read. It's super bizarre. I can't really explain anything about it to you other than just to say read it if you're interested. In the Dream House, this is truly immaculate vibes. That book is amazing. I just cannot praise it enough. I think that is more than a 10 out of 10. It is written so well. It's written in such a unique way. It's so emotional and complex and beautiful, and what a great, perfect way to process trauma through writing something like this. It was just mind-blowing. So good. So good. Next we have Supermarket, which, throw the whole book away. That was trash. The Starless Sea was not for me. I think I might be able to enjoy it more if I read it again now that I've read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern and kind of get her style more, but I was just lost the whole time. The Unhoneymooners. She was the moment. I loved that book when I read it. I devoured it in like a day. I made my friend read it and she also devoured it in like a day. It was really, really cute. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? That's No Thoughts Head Empty for me. It's a nonfiction from a mortuaryist. I don't know, someone who works with dead bodies wrote this book and answered like frequently asked questions about death and stuff, and it was cool, but don't remember a ton about it. Will not be sticking with me. The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. She was the moment. When I read that book, I freaking loved it. I thought Lisa Jewell was going to be my new favorite author forever, and then she's let me down since, but I really loved that book when I read it. Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I'm also going to say she was the moment. That book is really well done. It talks about performative activism and allyship in such an accessible and subtle way. There's so many layers of examining that book, and it was just done really well. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. That one's not for me. I've got problems with that book. Other people don't, but I do. Before the Coffee Gets Cold. That was good. Not great. Love the concept. Felt like the execution was a little lackluster. Regarding You by Colleen Hoover, I don't remember anything about that book. My Dark Vanessa, she was the moment. I was really engrossed in that book when I was reading it. I think it was written really well. It was a little bit repetitive towards the end, but it was really good. Una Out of Order. Her vibes are truly immaculate. I love that book so much. That's another one I would recommend to anyone. It plays with time and the meaning of life and how you live your life, and I love the characters. Made me cry. I just think that book is perfect. Writers and Lovers. That one is just not for me. I just don't think I like books where it's just about normal people living normal life and going through normal things. It was well written, but just kind of boring. The Glass Hotel. I have no thoughts after reading this book, honestly. It started off great. Don't know why it went where it went. Don't know what the point was. I don't understand. I think Emily St. John Mandel is a good writer, so I don't want to throw it away, but I don't have many thoughts about it. Topics of Conversation. I don't remember that book. It was super weird. Read it in like February or something, and it's just an unnamed main character going through life. It's like written in vignettes, just listening and having conversations with women about things that women talk about. The Sundown Motel, I'm going to say that's not for me. I didn't know it was going to be like literally paranormal, and I don't really like paranormal stuff. Transcendent Kingdom. The vibes were immaculate. It was truly immaculate vibes. I don't think I would say this is like an all-time favorite of mine, but the way it was written was so incredible, and I was so impressed by what that book did and how it did what it did. I just think that book is wonderful. The Death of Vivek Oji. This one's going to be up here. It definitely does not live rent-free in my mind. I don't know if I would say the vibes are immaculate. I think I gave this book 5 stars, but I just don't think I would read it again. There's like no reason. I don't know. It was a great book, but she was just the moment for me. The Swap by Robin Harding. This was, I don't know if I would say this was good. Like, it wasn't necessarily a good book. It was a very standard thriller, domestic drama, but I had so much fun reading it, so it's got to be The Moment, because it was the moment when I was reading it. I really enjoyed reading it. Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I thought this book was incredible. I don't know if the vibes were immaculate all the way, but it does live rent-free in my mind. I thought it was so clever the way it was written and just so fun to read and touched on deep topics in a light-hearted way, but not in a way that made those topics seem not serious. Like, it was just so good. I would love to read more from Fredrik Backman. A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreight. I'm going to say No Thoughts Had Empty. I don't know. It was just kind of another thriller. Over the Woodward Wall. This one was just not for me. A little bit too young. When No One Is Watching. That one is good. I don't think it's great though. This is the author's first attempt to write a thriller. She typically writes romance and historical romance, and this is a thriller about gentrification. I mean, it's called a thriller, but really it's more of like a slow burn horror, depending on who you ask. If you ask me, that's what I would say. It was a little bit evil villain cheesy and could have been done in a more subtle way that I think would have elevated the book, but it was good. Wisdom from a Humble Jellyfish. This is No Thoughts Had Empty. That was a nonfiction book I read that was just like words of wisdom about how to live your life, which is kind of just a coffee table book. In 5 Years, this one was good, not great. I was really surprised at the direction it took. I thought I was going to love it, but I just sort of liked it. The Fixed Stars. This is a memoir about a woman who was married to a man and then left him for a woman. So if you've read Untamed, pretty similar to that. Don't have a ton of thoughts about it. I thought it was good when I read it, but it just kind of left my mind. I listened to it on audiobook, so sometimes that happens too if I just listen to something on audiobook in the background that I'm not really paying that much attention to. It just sort of goes in one ear and out the other. Leave the World Behind. This was good writing, not great. Horrid. This was definitely good. I'm going to call her The Moment. Read that one in October or maybe November. Don't remember when I read it. Read it sometime in the fall season, and it's a young adult horror. I really just like Katrina Leno's writing. I think she's a great writer and can't wait to see what she does next. Next we have Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. I would say throw the whole book away. Sorry, Lisa Jewell. I'm just becoming less interested in your writing as time goes on. The Henna Artist. Let's see. This was really good. She was the moment. I enjoyed reading her when I read her. Really liked reading something set in India. I think that's the only book I've ever read set in India. Really enjoyed the vibes, really enjoyed the characters and the journey they went on. Thought it was written really well. The author took like 10 years to write it, and you can tell like it is just super great. It's like a tribute to her mom too, so I loved hearing about her story. Just thought that was really good. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Let's get her up here. This one lives rent-free in my mind. That is one of those books that just builds up such an atmosphere and such a feeling around the book that I am always going to like instantly be able to fall into that feeling of what it's like to read that book when I think about it. I did have some complaints. I don't think it was like perfect. I think it was a little bit slow-paced and repetitive and could have done more interesting things the way it was set up. I felt like there were so many opportunities to do cooler things with it, but I really did like it. I really loved the ending, and it was a really beautiful book. Next we have Watch Over Me. This one is all the way up to the top. Truly immaculate vibes. Thought that was so amazing. Loved the way it was written. Loved a little bit of weirdness and whimsicalness and the ghosts and just the overall way it represented going through trauma and grief. I thought was just perfect. So good. Home Before Dark. Good, not great. It was just too similar to The Haunting of Hill House. And if you've seen that, then it's kind of hard to read that book. One by One. This one, I'm just going to say not for me. Like, it was okay. I thought it was going to be a thriller. It was more of a mystery. And I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about that book. That's another one I have a whole reading blog for. So if you're really interested, you can go watch that to hear me ramble about that book for a while. Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. This one was not for me. I don't care about teenage drama relationships, and that's all it was. The Honey Don't List. This one, I'm going to say throw the whole book away. I really liked the idea, but it just focused on the wrong characters and could have been so much better. The Low Woods. This one is going to be up here. This is a graphic novel by Carmen Maria Machado, and It kind of scarred me for life, some of the images in it, but I'm gonna just say she was the moment. That was really fun to read when I was reading a bunch of spooky stuff in October. The art's really good. I really like the meaning of the story in the end. So solid right there. She was the moment. Girl Serpent Thorn. This is one that are just like no thoughts had empty to me. I also listened to that one on audiobook. I don't know, young adult fantasy. I don't really read young adult fantasy, but I've been trying to get more standalones, find like more standalone fantasies to read, try to get into it instead of like these series. So I was excited by the idea of Girl Serpent Thorn, but it just didn't do anything for me in a good or bad way. It was just kind of okay. Nobody will tell you this but me. That one I'll say was good, not great. That is a memoir slash nonfiction piece about this woman lost her grandmother. She wrote this book like from the voice of her grandma and the way her grandma told all these stories about her life. And she also has like voicemails from her grandma saved still, so it was really sweet, but it wasn't life-changing. He Started It by Samantha Downing. I loved this book when I read it. She was the moment, but I don't remember like everything about it, and I don't think it was like the best book I've ever read, but I really had a lot of fun with it. Luster, this book was so incredibly written. That lives rent-free in my mind. The story in itself was not exceptional. The characters weren't exceptional. Like, it wasn't that great of a story. But if you're a writer, you should read Luster. I've never read anything that was written like Luster. Luster was written so well. I can't believe the sentences this author strung together in this book. It was so good. Next we have The Vanishing Half. This one was good. Definitely better than good though. It was pretty great. But I'm just going to say she was the moment. It was written really densely, so it does sort of drag on and it's hard to get through if you don't like reading really dense books. But everything about it was really good. It just was a little dense. So she was just the moment. Next we have Catherine House, and this one, throw the whole book away. I did not like that book. You either love it or you hate it, and I am not on the love it side. Keep Moving by Maggie Smith. This one was... I was really looking forward to this book, and it's like good, but it's also kind of just a coffee table book, so it's more of like the no thoughts had empty category for me. I'm not going to think about this book a lot, but it's nice to have. Layla, I just read recently, and that one's going to be living rent-free in my mind. That was a very, very weird book, but somehow Colleen Hoover pulled it off. Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This book is a life changer, truly immaculate vibes. Really, really loved it. Really made me question my perception on things and broke me out of some harmful thinking patterns. So love that book. Love Glennon Doyle. The Only Good Indians. This one lives rent-free in my mind. I didn't enjoy it a ton when I was reading it, but can't get it out of my brain. Can't get some of those scenes out of my brain. It was just some of the craziest horror writing I have ever read. Pretty Things by Janelle Brown. I really loved this book, but that's kind of it. She was the moment. I really enjoyed reading it when I did, but it's not like outstanding. Follow Me to Ground. Throw the whole book away. It like tried to be interesting, and then it was just a really basic story that was covered in a bunch of flowery writing. And at the base of it, it was just pretty boring. 8 Perfect Murders. Did not like this book. Don't like Peter Swanson's writing generally anyways, but yeah, that book spoils a lot of other books, so if you don't want spoilers for some classic mysteries, you should avoid that one at all costs. Devolution, no thoughts had empty. Actually, I have thoughts. I would just say it's not for me. It wasn't like bad. I kind of knew I wasn't gonna like it that much when I read it. I just wanted to read it because it was one of the top horror books of the year, so definitely wanted to see what it was all about, but creature features are not my thing. Clap When You Land, I'm also gonna say that one was not for me. I think it's really good. I know a lot of people love Elizabeth Acevedo's writing. This is the only book I've ever read by Elizabeth Acevedo. I don't know. It was just not for me. I don't really read a ton of young adult anyway. Next we have The Guest List, and this one I would say I really liked it. I know a lot of people didn't really like it, but I really liked the vibes. I loved the atmosphere. I loved how it was just set at this wedding. It was a really contained story. There were a lot of characters, but it was really easy to distinguish them, and I just had a lot of fun reading it. Burn Our Bodies Down. I would say this one was good, not great. There's just something about Roy Powers' writing that is good, but not great. The endings, I'm just like what are you doing with your stories? This definitely was better than Wilder Girls. I liked it way more. It's much more marketable to a larger, broader audience. I just don't really think it was more than good. Next, we have The Girl from Widow Hills. This one, no thoughts had empty. Just a pretty standard thriller. Nothing really interesting happened there. Head Over Heels. I didn't like that. I thought it was trying to do too many things at once. It didn't really do anything particularly well. Beach Read, this one was not for me. I get why people like it. It was just kind of boring. Like I said, I'm not really into like normal people, normal lives. It's just pretty basic. Death in Her Hands. I'm going to put that and throw the whole book away. There was kind of no point to it. A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, I would say this one was the moment. This was really, really fun to read. I am excited for the sequel. I know it's surprising because I don't really read young adult fantasy, but I did really like that book. Next we have Mexican Gothic, and this one I would say lives rent-free in my mind. There's just some scenes from that book that I can't stop thinking about. I'll never think of mushrooms the same again. I didn't think it was super amazing or well written or unique or surprising in any way. I just think it's one that sticks with you. Next we have Midnight Sun, and there wasn't really a point to it. It was more of a money grab. In a Holidays, this one... throw the whole book away, honestly. Like, that book could have been so good. It was such a good idea. I was so excited for it to be a fun Christmas story, and it was so surface level. The characters were not interesting. It ended so cheesily. It was just not a good time. The Silence, this book was the moment. This is really interesting, very short story. I listened to it on audiobook. Honestly, I would say this one actually lives rent-free in my mind because I do think about that book a lot. It's sort of similar to Leave the World Behind. It's about just like if all the technology shut off in the world and you didn't know what was happening, what would you do? And like people don't really do anything, and it was really, really interesting. I wish that book would have been longer. I really enjoyed it. Next we have Fangs. This was a graphic novel comic series thing that I read, and this is just truly immaculate vibes. I love that comic. I love the couple. It's about a vampire dating a werewolf, and it's so funny. And it's not a cohesive story. It's just like little flashes and moments of their life, but it is so, so cute. Would highly recommend. Next, we have Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass. This is Lana Del Rey's poetry book. I listened to this one on audiobook. It was really good. That was the moment. I was very impressed by it. I love the production of the audiobook, so I would highly recommend if you're going to read that book to do it on audio if that's an option for you, because that experience was way better than the physical copy. Next, we have The House in the Cerulean Sea, and this book is going all the way up to the top. Truly immaculate vibes. One of the best books I've ever read. It's everything I want in a book. It was whimsical, it was heartfelt, it was touching, it was funny, it was magical, it was well written, it was witty, it was just everything. Truly immaculate vibes. Love that book so much. Next, we have The Night Circus, which also is going to have to go all the way up to the top. That is just the definition of truly immaculate vibes to me. The atmosphere in that book is like no other. It is one of the most beautiful love stories I have ever read that is not outwardly a love story. It was just so amazing. It's not for everyone. It's slower paced. It is more dense. It's not going to be exciting for everyone. Not everyone's going to love it, but I really, really love that book. And then last but not least, we have Anya's Ghost. And Anya's Ghost is a graphic novel that was the moment for me. That was really good. It had a plot twist. Didn't see it coming. Really enjoyed it. Thought it was a great book. And that is it for all the books that I read in 2020. I know it's probably a little hard to see, so I'll try to make it more visible on the screen so you can see all of my books. I ended up with 16 books in my truly immaculate vibes. So I'm going to have to whittle that list down a little bit if I want to do my top 10 books of the year. So stay tuned for that to see what I end up choosing. I also could end up picking books that are from the Living Rent Free in My Mind and She Was the Moment. Those could possibly make it in there too, so nothing is decided yet. And then definitely have a lot of books that I thought were good, not great, or not for me. I think I was just doing a lot of exploring in my reading this year and trying to figure out what it is that I like. I was reading horror for the first time. I was trying to keep up with the new books that were coming out that everyone was talking about. So I was reading things like Beach Read or Clap When You Land or The Sundown Motel that I might not normally pick up, and I just picked it up because it was popular. So not surprised that that is a pretty heavy category for me. Honestly, ended up with more books in the throw the whole book away category than I expected. So it'll also be interesting to compile my worst of the year list and the most disappointing of the year. So yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun. It was really fun for me to reflect on my reading through the year by doing this. So I hope you also enjoyed it. Comment and let me know if any of these surprised you, any of my top rated or lowest rated, or if there's anything you disagree with. And like I said, I know tier ranking is dead, but this was a ton of fun. So if there are any more tier ranking videos you would like for me to do, let me know and I will put that on the list because this was just a good time all around. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!